the real places from the Odyssey you can still visit today. Most people assume the Odyssey is pure fairy tale, a fantasy world of monsters and gods with no connection to anywhere real. But here's what's remarkable. Homer was describing actual places, real islands, real cities, real stretches of sea that exist to this day. And some of them you could visit right now, this year, just by getting on a plane. The legend is stitched onto a real map. So today, we're going to trace Odysseus's journey through the real-world locations behind it, the places where myth and geography meet. Please like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. We'll follow the journey from its start to its end, matching each mythical stop, one by one, to its real-world counterpart on the map. And be sure to save the last one, because Odysseus's own home, the very island he spent 20 agonizing years trying to reach, is still fiercely debated by scholars and archaeologists to this day. And the reason why is genuinely surprising. Some of these places you'd never guess were real. Let's begin at the very start of it all, with the city where the whole legend was born. The starting point of everything, Troy. For centuries, Troy was believed to be nothing more than a legend, a poetic invention with no more reality than the gods themselves. Serious scholars dismissed it entirely, filing it alongside fairy tales. Then, in the 1870s, an amateur archaeologist began digging at a hill called Hisarlik in what is now western Turkey, stubbornly convinced that the poems were describing a real place that really existed. What he uncovered stunned the entire world. Not one city, but 9 distinct cities, built one on top of another across thousands of years of history, and among those layers clear traces of burned and shattered walls, the unmistakable evidence of a city destroyed by war and fire. Troy was real. It had been sitting there in the earth all along, waiting, and today you can walk among the ruins of those very walls, stand on the ground where the ancient city once rose, and see the layers of human history stacked physically beneath your feet, one civilization pressed on top of the last. The legend, it turned out, had a foundation of solid stone. Next, Odysseus's own kingdom, Ithaca. Off the western coast of Greece, in the Ionian Sea, there is still an island called Ithaca today, bearing the ancient name. Case closed, you'd think. But here's the problem that has puzzled experts for generations. The actual geography of modern Ithaca doesn't quite match Homer's detailed descriptions of Odysseus's home. The poem describes features that don't line up. So some researchers have proposed a fascinating theory that the real Ithaca of the myth was actually a different nearby island, or even a peninsula that may have been separated by water 3,000 years ago. The debate is still very much alive. But whichever island it truly was, you can travel to Ithaca today and see the ruins that locals have long claimed to be the very palace of Odysseus, standing on a quiet hilltop above the sea. Now it gets stranger. Where did the one-eyed giant live? Ancient tradition consistently linked the land of the Cyclops to Sicily, and specifically to the region around Mount Etna, the great volcano. But why there? Here's the fascinating theory. Ancient people exploring caves in that region sometimes found the enormous skulls of prehistoric dwarf elephants that had once lived on the island. And in the center of an elephant skull is a single large opening where the trunk once attached. To people who had never seen an elephant, that central hole looked exactly like the socket of one enormous eye. So the terrifying legend of a race of one-eyed giants may have been born from a completely misunderstood fossil discovery, real bones, wrongly interpreted, spun into myth. And today, you can walk those same Sicilian coasts and see the dramatic rock formations said to be the very boulders the blinded Cyclops hurled after Odysseus's fleeing ship. The island of the sorceress Circe has a real-world home too. Tradition consistently matches it to Cape Circeo on the western coast of Italy, a place that quite literally takes its very name from Circe herself, a name it has carried for thousands of years. And the geography explains the myth beautifully, almost perfectly. From out at sea, approaching by ship as Odysseus would have, Cape Circeo looks exactly like an island, a dramatic, isolated mountain rising alone straight out of the water. But it isn't an island at all. It's actually connected to the mainland by a strip of low, flat land that's completely invisible from a distance out on the waves. It's precisely the kind of deceptive, tricking geography that would give ancient sailors the eerie, unsettling impression of a mysterious, isolated island appearing out of nowhere, exactly the perfect setting for a tale of enchantment and a witch who turns men into beasts. Today, that whole promontory is a protected national park, and remarkably, you can go and hike it yourself. This one is almost hard to believe. In the myth, Odysseus descends into the land of the dead itself. And astonishingly, the ancient Greeks believed this too had a real physical location, the Necromanteon, the Oracle of the Dead, in northwestern Greece. This was an actual temple, a real place that living people genuinely traveled to in the hope of speaking with the spirits of the dead. Its ruins are still standing today, and you can walk through them, including the dark, cramped underground chambers where those ancient rituals were performed, where pilgrims believed the barrier between the living and the dead grew thin. It's one of the most haunting places where myth and real human ritual completely overlap. People didn't just tell this story, they lived it. And perhaps the most real character in the entire Odyssey is one we overlook, the Mediterranean Sea itself. The storms, the deadly whirlpools, the treacherous narrow straits that nearly kill Odysseus again and again, these are all based on genuine, documented maritime hazards that real sailors faced and feared. Take Scylla and Charybdis, the two monsters guarding that impossible strait. They're widely thought to be inspired by the very real and dangerous whirlpools of the Strait of Messina, the narrow channel between Italy and Sicily, where powerful currents really can pull ships off course. Homer, in other words, took the actual terrors of ancient seafaring, the things that genuinely killed sailors, and transformed them into unforgettable monsters. The fear was real. The creatures were the story wrapped around it. So the Odyssey isn't pure invention after all. It's a legend built carefully on top of real geography. Homer wove together real places, real dangers, and even real fossil discoveries into a single unforgettable story. The map of the myth is, in large part, a map you could actually follow. So which of these real locations would you most want to visit? Troy, Ithaca, the Cave of the Cyclops? Tell me in the comments. But that raises the bigger question. What did Homer faithfully record, and what did he simply make up? That's exactly what we separate, piece by piece, in the next video. Please like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.